But
Make me laugh. You're now tuned into the First 10 podcast brought to you by Oxford Media. I'm your host, Brandon Graham, and I'm pleased to be joined by a very special guest. He goes by the name of Patrick Dennis Jr. He hails from Scarborough, Ontario, the pride and joy of Scarborough, Ontario, and I'm very pleased to join him. I've known for a long time. How are you doing, Patrick?
hey, thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me. First off, let me just get that out the way. You know, it's been a long time coming,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'm blessed, man. I'm good. All things considered, I am good. I'm glad to be here. Like I said,
Absolutely.
we talked about this for a minute now, so I'm glad we're finally able to make this happen, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And this is just hopefully the start of not only this just now, but hopefully in the future we do even more. Right? That's good.
A hundred
Let's get through.
percent.
Let's get through this first. I know you're wearing a Fresh and Fit podcast shirt right now, but it's all good.
Here we go. This guy is trying to roast
We'll
already.
go. We'll go. That's all good. So born on May 6th, 1991. Am I right?
Whoa, throwing everything
Whoa.
out there.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. But you got
It's
it.
like Covey. This guy is known as. Hey, listen, Pastor Gov. Patrick Jr. from Scarborough, Ontario, Malvern as well too. But I want to know. I'm gonna go through just your life, man. It's just like a
Yeah,
life
let's talk
podcast,
about
and
it.
we'll get into some football and of course some other stuff as well too. But growing up in
Yeah.
Scarborough, I know you end up going to Wexford Collegiate, but just growing up in in your upbringing in middle school, going to high school, like what sports do you gravitate to most? And
Yeah.
how did you kind of get into sports in general? Where does the fandom come from?
Yeah, man. So yeah, I grew up in a household of, immigrants. You know, my parents are from Jamaica, and growing up, cricket was a big influence for them. And like, my mom is one of seven children, and she grew up playing cricket. And when they got here, cricket doesn't really translate to Canada, right? So when she got here, she fell in love with baseball. My grandmother, so her mom, rest in peace to both of them, they fell in love with baseball. So that became the sport that
Makes
I was kind
sense.
of raised on, and
Right.
that and soccer were two big influences for me growing up. So as most kids do when you're little, you get
Yeah.
into like little league or you play soccer growing up, so or football as they call it. But
Hmm.
so for me, those were my introductions into sport. Like baseball was my first love, if I'm being honest. I
Hmm.
did the
Hmm.
soccer thing and I quit. um,
Okay.
there's too much cardio, man. Too much running around now.
Too much
So I went
I
from
hear
like
you.
the sport with like the most cardio to baseball, where you're not running at all, basically.
Right.
So,
That makes sense.
but no. Shout out to all the baseball players. But
Yeah.
for me, that was where I got my start into fandom, into sports. So growing up in the time where the Jays were the hottest ticket in baseball. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We're
Hmm.
coming off, you know, um, the World Series,
World
back to
Series.
back World Series. Not to mention Joe Carter hitting that home run.
Of
My
course.
family's, my mom's side of family is the Carters, so they claim Joe Carter as our own.
That's spam. Yeah,
That's
already.
fam.
Yeah, for
So
fam. Yeah, yeah.
that was it. So like we all just grew up going to baseball games, and that was a sport that I gravitated towards the most. And then I got into other sports, of course, like basketball and football and even hockey. But for me, it was baseball, man. I always wanted to be like, you know, I picture
Yeah.
myself as a center fielder playing for the Blue Jays one day. But
Right, right,
it
right.
it didn't quite get there. But hey, I still follow it, and I love that team, and I love the sport.
That's awesome, man. I think when I first met you, you were like, "Yeah, I'm a really big baseball fan." I'm like, coming from Branson, like this guy, baseball. What? No, I totally understand it though. You probably looked up to guys like Ken Griffey Jr. because he's the
A
coolest
hundred
guy.
percent.
Yeah, of course,
A
coolest
hundred
player
percent.
in it for a long time. And okay, so going from there, that's where it kind of cultivated. And I think, even thinking back because we did meet in university, but
Yeah.
your love for like even journalism and even getting
Yeah.
into more so sports journalism in general, was it cultivated from you watching guys like Cabby on TV, the score? Like, do you remember those days? Like, is that
Yeah,
where
of course,
it
of
kind of
course, of course, of course. I
cultivated from?
think when you hit a point where you realize, like, definitely in probably high school, where it's either you're dedicating your full attention to playing a sport, or you're going to be talking about a sport.
Mhm.
And I wasn't gifted athletically like that, so for me it was gravitating towards, okay, how can I still be involved with sports? So guys like Cabby, Tim and Sid, um, man, Stuart Scott, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Like
Yeah.
all these guys who used to see coming up on the TV.
Right.
I was like, yo, I want to do that. You know what I mean? I want to talk about sports. I want to either cover, different sports and just have that as something I do. So just seeing those guys and seeing the work that they put in, and then you talk about our time at GH, which I know we'll get into a little bit deeper, but
Yeah.
it really cultivated something inside of me that said, you know what, definitely keep this as a part of what you do. Like, you may not be able to play it at a high level, but you could talk it at a high level.
Don't sell yourself short, man. You can play. I know you can play baseball. You can play some little football too. Don't sell yourself short, man. This guy's actually, listen, he hit that shot. Kobe. There you go. we already know.
Ridiculous.
Okay. So going from, middle school and then to Wexford Collegiate. So Wexford Collegiate is known, like, from my recollection, even it's almost like a Mayfield in Brampton, where it's like an art school.
Yeah.
So did you have to like try out to get in that school, or is it something that it was just you just went there? Like how was that process going from grade 8 to
Nah. You don't just go to Wex. You don't just you can't walk off the street and be like, no, I'm kidding. If you you know how it is. Like if that's your home school, then you get to go in. But they have a program that's either dramatic arts or visual arts. So I went into the dramatic arts, and man, that was a intense process.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't think many people know this, but like, so you have to audition, right, to get in. So they make you do a choreographed dance piece, because they do musical theater as well. So you do a choreographed dance piece, you do a vocal solo, and then you do like a monologue, so like a dramatic acting piece. So I was good with like the vocals. I was nervous, but I was good with the drama piece. The dancing, I was like, I'm gonna figure it out.
Hear you, Dougie.
Yeah. It's more like musical theater. So we're talking like, I don't know, like Hamilton, not even as cool as Hamilton, like freaking Oliver Twist or something like that. Fiddler on the Roof or something.
Yeah, I get it. Can I more, sir? Like please, I don't be please.
Can I have some more? So
I understand.
So like, man, I remember being so nervous that I had a friend of mine whose mom, she was driving a bunch of us to go do our audition. I threw up in her car, bro.
Oh my gosh.
On the way to, like, that's the first time I've been that nervous in my life. And it made me realize, like, when you want something that badly, emotions are going to come out of you and things are going to happen you don't even know, right? But all that to say, like, I got in, I was super excited, you know what I mean? And it's one of those schools where, like, if you look at it, the alumni from there, like, are doing fantastic things. Some people, guys like Shamir Anderson, Shanice Banton, I actually just saw a concert with this girl named Looney, who she's big time R&B star now, and she graduated from Wexford, you know what I mean? And there's countless other people, Nina Dobrev, and like so many other people I could name, Mercedes Morris. Like there's so many people who are up and comers that
Pastor Junior right
there.
Exactly.
There you go. Established people, even from a visual arts perspective. We got people who are working on like Marvel films and all sorts of stuff. So you know what I mean? It's one of those schools where they definitely cultivate an experience and a learning style that allows you to blossom. You might go in and think you're going to become an actor, which is what I did, but then you might leave thinking, you know what? Maybe it's not the acting, but I'm going to take all of these skills and I'm going to use that in my next career path. So awesome. I have a lot of respect for that program, man.
That's awesome. I'd never heard that story before. I felt like I knew a lot of that. We're gonna dig a little bit and kind of go from there. But being in high school and being in that, you would say it's kind of a competitive program, right? Like with people that are doing acting and doing plays and whatnot. Did you ever have to lead on your sister or your father or your different friends and so forth when like you ran into tough times on there? Like who are people you confided in going in that school? I know it's competitive. It's almost like being at a musical, like High School Musical, right? Like were there tough times going through that school? Like what exactly do you experience there, and who do you lean on?
Yeah, 100%. So I had the advantage of having an older sister. She's 10 years older than me, and I kind of followed her footsteps in that sense. She went to Wexford and she paved the way, helped me rehearse for the audition, and any sort of struggles I may have had, I definitely went to her first, she's kind of like a second parent or a third parent rather. But yeah, my family was definitely a good support system for me, but having that sister or sibling who went through those experiences, to help bolster that confidence. Because for me, confidence is definitely something I think sometimes can lack. You might be, for me, I'm like really hard on myself. You know, I think a lot of us
Yeah, of
are,
course.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but then it's good when you have people in your corner bigging you up and saying, yo, like, you deserve to be there. You're just
Right.
as good, if
Right.
not more so than these people, right? So you need that sometimes to help encourage you and push you past limits that you put on yourself. So for me, being in a competitive program, man, like my grade 12 year, I leaned a lot on my family and
Mhm.
my friends to uplift me to the point where I got a main role in our senior play. You
Oh,
know, I
that's
was like,
major. Bomb, bomb,
yeah,
bomb, bomb.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. You know what I mean? Like I was one of the main cast members of that production, and you know, featured and had to do this really long monologue, and I think about grade 9 me to grade 12 me, the growth and just what happened and the confidence that I was
Mhm.
able to get. So yeah,
Right.
man, definitely leaning on family and friends like during that high school period was a major
Was
key.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, and the
progress from grade
faculty
9.
too. You know.
Yeah, yeah, of course, a lot of
Yeah.
faculty too, but especially for as a black man exploring that in that environment too, right? You need the confidence because there's a lot of obstacles as you're going up and you're kind of ascending, right? But that's awesome.
Yeah.
So going from being in Wexford Collegiate, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
an interesting podcast. I love the fact that we're doing
Hey,
this.
I love it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but now you deciding to go to post secondary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What made you decide on Guelph Humber? Did you apply to like Ryerson? Like what was your mindset going from grade 12, that grade 12 year? Right? Because I see kids doing it all the
Oh
time.
man.
I want to know what you
Yeah.
did past your this year.
Yeah. So I think I knew early on in the whole process. I think from grade 11 you start having those conversations, right? So for me it was okay, where do I want to take this? So I knew like communications was really where I wanted to focus. And then
Right.
it honed in on, okay, journalism, broadcasting. So I really looked at the programs of the schools that had those programs. I went to the career fairs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got the spiel from all
Right.
the different reps from the schools.
Right.
Even some crazy person who tried to tell me that Peter Mansbridge is just a talking head. But
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
haters too.
ridiculous, ridiculous,
Damn.
ridiculous.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, but going back to it, I was like, you know what? Ryerson, I know has a really good program. They have radio and television. It might have changed now.
Mm-hmm.
Carleton, really good program.
Right.
UFT had like this co-op program with Centennial at the time, and then this school I never heard of, Guelph Humber. I was like, Guelph Humber, like, am I going to Guelph? Where like
Where are we
you
going?
know?
Yeah.
But I did a campus tour, and that was the only school I did a campus tour for, and
Right.
I was sold, man. Like honestly, the facility there wasn't like anything I'd seen before. You know, it was a smaller school, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of at the time what I felt I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew I was going to get that hands-on experience. So for me, you know, it was really making that list and saying, okay, what do I prioritize? Do I want strictly theory, or do I
Mm-hmm.
want where I can get theory but some hands-on experience, actually doing things and you know making mistakes and all of that.
Right.
So for me, that's what pulled me towards GH, and yeah, I don't look back, man. I had like a really good time there, and I learned a lot. Like even doing
Mm-hmm.
this stuff, like
Yeah.
I don't know, would I be doing this without GH? I don't know, man. But it's
Right.
yeah, great experience.
Oh my god! You know what I just remembered about Sports Drive. Oh my gosh! I
Yeah,
just remember. Oh, see,
yes,
wait. No, we'll get to that. Okay,
yeah,
now
yeah, yeah,
you going to GH because this is a fascinating story. In Malvern, going in
yeah,
Scarborough, going to this. Were your
yeah,
friends like, "Oh, you're trippy"? They kind of like encourage you, bigging you up, like, "Yo, go to this, like, do your thing." Like, how? What were your friends doing at the time as well? To the people that were around you, what were they going into? What do you
yeah.
think?
I mean, not so much from the high school to university. I definitely got that when I went from say middle school to high school,
Oh, okay, got it, got
because
it. Yeah,
my high school was out of my area, right? Like I grew up in Vern, and I love Malvern, but it's a tough area. It's
right.
a tough area. You know what I mean? So um, I didn't always felt like I fit in. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there was
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't you know out there thugging. I wasn't you know
Mm-hmm.
doing all this sort of stuff. But that's when I felt it. When it came to high school, everyone was mad supportive, man. Everyone's like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, like, Pat, go do this. Like, we could see you, you know, I want to see you on my TV screen. I want to
Yeah,
hear you on radio, all that sort of
yeah,
stuff. So
yes, sir.
definitely people were encouraging. And I, it's also, I think, the environment of the school I went to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
everyone was trying to, and the program, like everyone's trying to get into the front facing or just out there, you know, where it's a
Mm-hmm.
school of extroverts, if you will.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, everyone's kind of encouraging each other and, you know, watching each other as well. But you're like
Mhm.
competitive edge. It's like, oh,
Of course.
they're doing this.
There
No,
it
no, no,
is.
no, no. I'm gonna go do this. You
I'm
know?
doing that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
feel you.
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
you.
yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
answer, Patrick. Okay, so now going, you know, you're going through your journey. Now going to Gulf Home
Yeah.
University. I think I met you on the Frosh day. I think you saw me like, oh, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this Negro? Like, I don't know.
Basically, I was like, who's this waste man?
But I remember it because I remember you took a picture with the same shirt. It was like a black shirt with like a blue emblem in the middle. You know what I'm saying? This is back in the day. I don't know. You had a black
Back
shirt
in
with
the
a blue.
day, my drip was nasty. Yeah.
Nasty drip. I think everyone's drip was nasty for sure. But I remember meeting you there. I'm like,
Exactly.
but I remember
Yeah.
seeing him like, yo, there's black people in this. I was like surprised. I'm like, what? It's black people.
Facts.
You probably felt the same way, right? Because like the
Facts.
majority of people. So I was like kind of relieved. I'm like, thank God there's more people like us, right? So shout out to you, of course,
Yeah.
being the lifelong brother, of course, from university as well, right?
100%.
But absolutely. But yeah, going to university and the University of Guelph Humber in those first few sessions when it comes to being in the class, just being there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you kind of feel in the first year like, oh my gosh, like what are we doing? Or like what was your first take of the university that year? Like how did you feel the trajectory where it's going? Like exactly what were you thinking in that time?
Man, I that's I'm trying to think back. Like
Right.
I remember walking in and feeling kind of overwhelmed by the
Right.
experience, especially when we had like those giant I mean we didn't have many of them, but you go into like the lecture
The
hall
lecture
room
rooms.
and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And seeing all those people, I'm like, I've never been in a class with this many people. So it kind of felt overwhelming.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like, you know, once I got over the fact that you're from Brampton, um no, but for like connecting with you and like there was a couple other people that like
Yeah.
we just clicked right away. You know, we
Mhm.
bonded right away.
Right.
And that made it a lot easier for me. It was just having people who it felt like I knew them already. Like
Mhm.
honestly, when I met you, it felt like I knew you from before, you know?
Exactly.
So having that experience and it feeling more like high school versus a giant university
Right.
definitely helped make the transition easier. But I loved seeing like what we could do, like seeing the
Yes.
labs that we were, you know, going to get to. You know, in first year, I don't really think we got to do too many things.
No.
No, but you could see where like, you know, you saw the film studio or you saw like the production labs and all that sort of stuff. So seeing that, I was like, okay, I'm I'm
Mhm.
I'm ready for this.
Ready for this. Absolutely, man. And to be honest with you, like I have
Yeah,
some young listeners, of course, are listening from I'm not saying like listen from high school, but university, high school. And I
yeah,
tell them all the time, like Gulf Humber is like a great place to go if you want to be like you feel like a number. Like you actually felt like
yeah,
your voice was heard in the university, right?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so that absolutely.
Except that like I was gonna say, except that like, you know, they called me Shaq. Like, you know, all the black guys kind of look like my boy Shaq. But whatever, it's fine.
Shout out to Shaq. Shout out to Shaq. Shaq's living in the middle. He's tanning in the lotion. He has suntan lotion on his chest, flourishing in the wind with
Honestly,
his beard. You never. This guy's putting oil on
ridiculous.
his head right now. You can probably. Anyways, going to
Yeah,
second year
man.
now. I wanted to just get your take
Yeah,
about this. Just your own, of course. Like
yeah, yeah,
I did feel like I knew you from before, and I love these conversations. But in second year, when you have to choose what you're going to do in third year and fourth year,
yeah,
out
yeah.
of those four strands when it comes to journalism, public relations, photography, or video digital communications, what
Yeah.
was your mindset going into it? And like looking back, would you have changed your decision? Like, or
Mm.
what exactly do you feel going in there in that
Hmm.
point?
For me, it was easy. Like I knew journalism was what I wanted to do. I think I maybe had a couple thoughts where I was like, sorry, where I was like, you know, maybe PR. Let me
Mhm.
explore that. But at the end of the day, I always knew like I went in for journalism. Journalism was what I was going to do. So I never really strayed away from that too much. And it was an easy decision for me to sort of just say, yeah, this is the stream that I want to go into.
Absolutely. And I am really
Yeah.
thankful for you too, because we did a sports drive with Humber, and it's funny because
Yes.
a lot with getting that experience, it was experience. You're live on air for a certain period of time, and it was
Yeah.
still a great experience of getting to do that. So that was great. Shout out to Cross. I can't remember his last name. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Alan Cross, man.
Alec
Yeah,
Cross, man,
yeah,
the man with
yeah.
the crazy hair he
And
has.
no, on that point though, it's funny. You
Yeah.
know, I just moved into a new spot, and shout out to YC
Congratulations, by
for
the way.
got this place. Yeah, I appreciate
Yeah.
it, man. And I came across, you know, as you start moving, you're purging things. I came across our old sports drive demo tapes. So
Oh,
one
nice.
day, if you come by, I gotta dig them up and play them for you. But
We need
bro, like,
that.
how old are you? This is second year, right? So we're probably like
Second year.
19,
19,
maybe
20 years old. Yes.
20.
19,
Yeah,
20. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And shout out to Rudy as well, who's on there. But bro, like, take it in though. We were on, like, we gotta pick ourselves up here. We were on radio, bro. Like, we were broadcast out
Yes, sir.
into the airwaves. Like, this
Yes,
is,
sir.
this is before like podcasting was a big thing. Like, we were
Mm-hmm.
out there. You could pick us up on your car, like in your
Mm-hmm.
car at
Right.
home. Like, just thinking
Yes,
about that,
sir.
I'm like, that's a big experience that we got to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I don't think we
Yeah,
realized it at the time. We definitely did
yeah,
because like there's a lot of people around that's doing your stuff and so on and
yeah,
so
yeah,
forth. But being on the air there, and then yes, before podcasting, you could probably look at it now, seeing all these podcasts, you're like, wow, it blew up right after, right? Because radio right now is
yeah,
not obsolete, but not a lot of people are
yeah, yeah,
actually because those are turned into
yeah,
podcasts.
yeah,
That's incredible. But okay, so now in for okay in fourth year now, right?
yeah,
And so I'm going through your trajectory here.
yeah, yeah.
When it comes to internships, do you know
Mm-hmm.
initially that you wanted to be with 680 News, or what was your initial take there? And how long was the process for the internship? Because remember, they didn't give you any help at all to get an internship.
No,
What do
man,
you think?
you were like thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't think 680 was the first place I looked at, to be honest with you. Definitely like the TSNs, the Sportsnets, like um, the Score. Like, I remember even auditioning for Drafted at the
Same.
time, which is wild.
Yeah.
So I was definitely heavy into sports, and
Right.
then one thing led to another. We had some connections from a few other people who were a year or 2 years older than us who got in and were like, "Yo, like, check this out. Like, this could
Mhm,
be a thing." So
mhm,
that opened the door for me, man. And I remember walking into the interview for that internship,
mhm.
bro. I wore a suit. I wore like,
The four piece.
yeah, that's Steve Harvey 4 piece. Nah, it was disgusting. It was disgusting. But no, I remember walking in and I wore a suit, and not everyone did. And I remember specifically Rudy Blair,
Right,
who used to be on that station covering entertainment. And,
right,
I didn't even know he's black. And he came up to me, he's like,
yeah,
shook my hand. He's like, listen, this is how you show up. I love this. Like,
right.
this is how you show up right here. So,
Yes, sir.
when he kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and
Yeah.
yeah, man, like, it was a great experience. Like, I
Mhm.
learned a lot, met a lot of people.
Of course.
And it just so happened that you ended up being across the hall from me, kind
Yeah,
of,
right
in
across
another
the hall.
station, right? Like, it's wild how
Yeah,
that happened.
that
Yeah,
yeah,
but it was
that was
a great
incredible.
experience, man. Yeah,
Absolutely, man. So yeah, looking back at the GH experience,
yeah.
really worthwhile, right? Like you learned a bit, getting to do emerge. When you look
Oh
back
yeah.
at it, wouldn't change it for the world, right?
No, man. Like, honestly, like, yeah, not everything was perfect. Like, as you're going through it, you're like, like, I gotta spend all night doing this project or working
Yeah.
on this. But
Mhm.
when I don't think in the moment you realize what you have. It's like as you
Mhm.
graduate and you move on, and now we're what, almost 10 years or whatever
Right.
past it.
Right.
Not quite 10 yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
But now reflecting on it, I'm like, I wouldn't change anything, man. Like, the
Right.
experiences I had, the people I met,
Mhm.
what I got to do, like, I don't know where else I would have gotten that experience, to be honest with you.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, amen to that, brother. That's what I would say. Uh, okay, now and then going from there, and I have a lot to do. And of course, you host of Not with the Hype podcast, doing street eats as well
Yeah.
too, doing a lot in the
Yes.
media landscape.
Yes.
Right? Shout out to you. Shout out to what you're doing. But going from there, and now you had an internship with 680 News. You learned a lot there. But then you get a job as a promo representative. Were you
Yeah.
working two jobs at the time? Like, how was that transition and even working to it? Because I was doing the same thing, but I want to know your take about being in an internship and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
trying to get a job with that place. Like, what are the obstacles you saw with that, Patrick?
Bro, Jamaican. So I was working like 3 jobs. No, like, seriously,
Yeah.
I was at Sport Check, I was at IKEA, and then um, what else? I was doing like the promo gig, and
Mhm.
I had the internship with like urbanology. So I had my hat and my hands in so many different things, and it got stressful, man. It got to a point where, jobs are saying, oh, we need you to commit X amount of time to us. Like, we need to be your sole priority.
Right.
But it's like, yo, I'm doing this stuff for free. I got to
Exactly.
make some money. I got bills to pay. I'm trying to set myself up. So
Yeah.
it was definitely a challenge trying to balance out getting the experience
Hmm.
in media while also, you know,
Trying to make money.
working a job in somewhere else in a different
Right.
field, and trying to balance that out. So it was a
Right.
struggle, but ultimately, I think, leaving the internships and then the internship at 680 turning into, based on the connections I had, this promo gig, which got me to allow me to network with so many different
Mm-hmm.
people and see a different side of media. I realized that, what? I don't have to be just a broadcaster or a journalist to be involved in media.
Of
I can
course.
do media in communications, a little bit of PR. So
Hmm.
that opened my eyes up a little bit and allowed me to then take one of my part-time jobs and turn that into a full-time gig as a communications response, like a representative specialist, PR specialist, and really allowed me to bring the best of both worlds, if I can. So, it was finding a way to turn that maybe side hustle, or not even side hustle, but that part-time job outside of media into something that was related to media.
Yeah, and shout out to but that's a great answer, by the way. Give yourself an applause. Applause for that. That's a great answer. But now
Appreciate that.
of course, going promo representative, and I always saw him like, yo, you're busy. I was busy doing 3 jobs as well too. But I'm like, yo, this guy is busy, man. He's about his business. But with IKEA and IKEA Canada doing communications representative, and of course, doing great things with them as well. The essentials to get there. Were you
Yeah.
continuously looking at like different opportunities to get up there? Or you just I see you as like a networking savant, right? I see you always networking. How was that transition in getting that job at front the head office and like everything there? Like how was that to get to where you were right now?
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of networking, man. It's
Right.
it wasn't always great. At moments, I thought like there was gonna be no openings, and there weren't any openings for a while, for a few years there. So I started looking outside of IKEA,
Mm-hmm.
and but again, this is my key to everyone. I always say, network, meet people. You
Mm-hmm.
never know how a connection is gonna help you or how you can help someone else.
Right.
So it just happened that through a connection I made, someone knew that I was interested in media. I went to school for media.
Mm-hmm.
An opening happened, and I was the first person they thought of. And
Awesome.
so I was able to, land a role using, obviously, yes, my skills first off, but then also the network that I had. So definitely, I'd say network and promote yourself as much as you can, for sure. Definitely helps. It helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to do it. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think that's how
Yeah.
you get to different levels, is just
Right.
having conversations with people and networking.
Never being comfortable where you are, right? Just always elevating there. That's a great lesson, I
Yeah.
think. And last thing I'll say, with the job you have right now, are you doing stuff with like equity right now? Like what are you currently doing with IKEA Canada in the job that
Yeah. So I currently work as like a project manager, right? So
you're right?
on my like technically 9 to 5, my day job, it's not really connected to media communications per se, but I get to use some of those skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, while still trying to figure out what's my next move.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I want to take my career? So I started doing some work in the ED&I space,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when it comes to race and ethnicity and diversity from that perspective. So for me, it's really about promoting Black people,
Of course.
other people of color into roles of leadership, and I want people to see themselves in different spaces,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't see it, you don't think it's possible, right?
Of
So
course.
that's kind of where I'm shifting my career now a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
is definitely to be in that space and be, that voice for another generation.
Definitely. Hey, if you need somebody to motivate you, Patrick Dennis is your guy. Like, just the way these answers are just hate. Of course, Patrick Dennis is your guy. Of course, I would never steer the wrong way. So, I know
No,
you said you want to shape your career that way. Of course, in making.
yeah.
How do you become a Philadelphia Eagles fan, man? How did that happen? How did you shape into that at all? Was this a family thing? How do you become that, man?
Listen, so okay, we talked about representation.
Right.
Growing up and getting into football probably in like maybe 99, 2000, I didn't really have a team. Toronto doesn't have a team. So really, I gravitated towards where I saw the Black people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
So,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
from, um, it was Donovan McNabb, really, who was like
Right.
the first real memory I have of like a quarterback. I was like, I like this dude.
Right.
And
Like
then,
this dude.
from liking him, Brian Westbrook, Dawkins, all those guys back then, I was like, I like this team. And so I slowly started following them a little bit more. And, like I said, they had some dark times in the early 2000s,
Real dark
but
times.
I could never cheer for a New York team. I hate New York teams. I will never cheer for them. I'm not going to cheer for a Boston team. That's not
Never.
happening.
Never.
Ever.
Yeah.
Never. And, so if we think about what's close to us, I had no connection to Buffalo. I was like, Buffalo, especially back then, Buffalo was not a good team back then.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was just like proximity-wise, I guess the Eagles ended up being the closest team, and they had that cool factor about them.
Mm-hmm. TL
So
one.
for me, that's where it started.
Yeah, that was the culture. You're right. That was the culture. My brother's a huge Eagles fan too, of course, and just like you, all these Eagles fans. So everything Eagles related, I always think about you or my brother, obviously, when it comes up. But yeah. Okay, so that Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Which one?
Did you cry? Again, the Super Bowl where they won with Carson Wentz going out. Of course, Nick Foles is in the fold, going up against Brady. Did you shed tears?
Can I say
that? Shed tears?
My bad. I don't know if I can say that.
You can say whatever. It's fine.
All right.
No, I want to know, like, did you shed tears that day? With all the years of heartbreak and pain, how did you feel, Patrick, that time?
Man, there were no tears that day, but I will say, like, I was running up and down. We had a viewing party at my boy's place, who's also an Eagles fan, right. And bro, we were just screaming, we were just jumping up and down, and it just felt like, and no one can tell us nothing anymore, because the biggest knock on Eagles is never win. You guys don't win. So right. I have friends who are Cowboys fans, Giants fans. They're always like, oh, well, you guys haven't won anything. So now we can finally say, listen, we ain't Charles Barkley. We won something, You can't tell us we don't win nothing. We won something. It felt amazing. And even the hype around that team, you're talking like, I'm not from Philly, but I can understand like Meek Mill coming out with, Dreams and Nightmares. And the team's coming out to that. It's not like, bro, the energy, like, it just resonated. You see Kevin Hart, like, out there, and he's at the top of his career at that time, and he's everywhere. It just seemed like this was the time for the Eagles, and to beat the Patriots, the team, to beat Brady and Belichick, the team that like we should have beat at Super Bowl, like, what was that, 2004? We should have beat them.
Right.
What number.
You should have beat them. Yes, absolutely.
We should have beat them, but now to get the revenge against Brady and Belichick, it felt so good.
It's absolutely. And to be honest, you think about 2004. I was actually hurt when they lost that game. I was like, yo, that effect. I'm like, that was like, I'm not trying to make it a race relation, but that was like a white versus a supremacist, a black versus white supremacist thing. Sure. That's how it felt, right? Sure. So that's how it came back. All right. So now looking at your team currently constructed and drafting Jordan Davis out of Georgia, Nakobe Dean out of Georgia. Both those guys are dogs. All right. You have Calcaterra as a tight end who's out of Oklahoma. He's really good. You have another guy, Cameron, that's obviously signed. Are you hopeful for the future? Where do you see this team actually going? Do you see them making the playoffs again and just being like the Portland Trailblazers of the NFL? Whereabouts do you see this team, man? Now with AJ Brown, Miles Sanders, and Jalen Hurts. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then we just had a signing today of oh man, I'm forgetting his name.
Bradbury, yes. Oh my gosh.
Bradbury, yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, this team is stacked. This team is like, the time is now.
Absolutely.
The time is now.
Oh, Dame. Okay, Dame.
Yeah. But no, I look at this team seriously, and it's like, I've seen Jalen Hurts get better every single year, and this is the season. It's like, show us what you're truly made of. You know what I mean? We've given you all the weapons on the offensive side, and defensively too. We've tightened up certain areas. We talked about the cornerback. We talked about our secondary. Talked about our pass rush. We've got guys like Fletcher Cox who are, he's going to be leaving soon, but we drafted, the next guy to fill in for him. So absolutely. I look at this team and I'm like, we're right there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Do we get the Super Bowl this year? I don't know, but we're definitely looking to win that division. The Cowboys, I'm sorry. Cowgirls, I'm sorry. You guys are done.
You're done.
You're done. You're done.
Yeah.
I'm not even. There's no one else in the division that I worry about. Giants, They're 3 years away
The
from being 3 years old. You
Commanders?
know what I mean? Come on, Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz. That's going to be electric when he goes back to, to
It's a
Philadelphia.
Monday Night Football game too. I think the first appearance is Monday Night Football. So I say all that to say, like, the Eagles, the time is now for them to take that next step into the upper echelon of NFC teams. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to the season for sure. I might even have to go down to Philly again. I don't know.
I will have to probably join you and just see how it is. Because I want to ask you about that, right? Because guys like Ben Simmons can't handle it. Some guys just can't handle it. Why is Philly so grungy? Why is the energy down there so real? Like, why do the fan base down there is just so real? You've been in Philly. You have your sister, I believe, in Philly as well, too.
Yeah.
How, like, when you're there, how's, like, does it relate to anything that we have down here? Like, what's the best comparison to how the people are down here and how the environment is down here,
Man, it's, I'd say it's similar to Toronto in the sense that, so we call Toronto like the screw-face capital. That was the name that we had for a while. Yeah. And Philly is like a no-nonsense city. They want people who are going to work hard and grind. Like, that's a city of grinders. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Nothing comes easy in that city. Right. And it's almost like you've got New York, you've got what else is close by, like Boston. You got some other big cities in the East that get all the shine. Philly doesn't really get that same sort of love, so I get it. They're like that middle child, So I see the attitude. You go there, you can feel it's like people from Philly, they're really prideful. They love their city, and if you're not going to work hard, you're going to get eaten alive. They're going to toss you aside. That's why they love guys like Embiid, and like I think Jimmy Butler, man, really would have fit in there, if he stayed, because that's a grinder, Kyle Lowry. You look at guys like that who are from Philly, like they don't mess around,
Right.
So I think that's what it is. Like, if you can't keep up with that energy, then that's not the city for you. So if you're weak-minded, if you're not going to work hard, don't go there.
Don't go. Just don't go.
Don't go there.
That's a scary place. Got you. And speaking of Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, we're going to transition a little bit into the NBA. I want to get your takes on a few things right here, man. Listen, if someone said this on the radio, I want to know if you believe this. Okay, they said if Giannis didn't cheat the grind. Cheating the grind means if he didn't cheat the grind, if he cheated the grind and he's going to another team, he's joining a super team like LeBron's and so on and so forth. If he didn't cheat the grind and he went to Dallas, because they actually had the money to bring in Giannis to be with Luka, someone said that they will be better than Jordan and Pippen. So think about it. Those two guys. I just want to know, first of all, is that take accurate if you have Luka Doncic and Giannis in the same team? Or, Michael Jordan, Pippen? Because you think about it, Pip is not as good as those two guys. What do you think about that two tandem, man? Let me hear your take on that.
I mean, from a talent perspective, sure, but like, who's shooting? Who's like, both those guys need shooters around them. You know what I mean? So you got to build a team where you're gonna put so everyone's got to be shooters on your wings, and you know what I mean. So I think from a talent perspective, it's lethal. It's lethal.
It's nuts. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say Jordan Pippen. I don't know if there's a better
because remember, people are attached to nostalgia, right? But when you think about now,
are we thinking maybe Magic and Kareem?
Yeah, but remember, Luka Doncic is the problem, right? So that's one.
No, he's that boy. That boy's something else, man.
That boy's something else.
That next generation that. I'm glad I got to see him. Not recently, but I got to see him, pre-COVID, and he was still a little bit younger, more raw. But he was a problem back then, and just seeing how he's elevating his game, and bro, my man's eating burgers and drinking beer before
a game right now.
Before games right now, and it's dropping buckets.
Right.
He's just a hooper. You hear that term, guys who are just hoopers. All they do is play ball. They just love ball. That is him. You know what I mean? He's not about all this extracurricular stuff. He just wants to just hoop and win, and he wins at every level. I love it.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is completely different than James Harden. I think James Harden's actually fell out of love with basketball. He likes the steak and lobster, and he likes the lobster rolls. Of course, that guy's he doesn't love it. But anyway, let me get your take on the NBA playoffs right now between the Golden State Warriors and the Mavs. Do you think the Golden State Warriors can slow down Luka Doncic? Yes or no? And do you think the Boston Celtics can beat the Heat? Go right there.
Okay. So I think Golden State has the defenders, I think, where they can slow Luka down a bit, but at the end of the day, he's still going to get his.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where Golden State has the advantage is they can let Luka get his, but you know, it's Luka. No, like there's no one else on that team really. No
Right.
disrespect to the rest of
Spencer Dinwiddie.
them. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that series is going to be very interesting, though, man. I could see that one going a 7 games because Golden State's not a perfect team either, man. They got their
Exactly.
issues.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't know what
Yeah.
you're going to get from a guy like Clay night to night. You know what I mean? Draymond is not the same Draymond from a few years ago. You know what I mean? And you know they were without Peyton, right? So they got but Poole. What's Poole
Nice.
going to do? I think that's the wild card there. So
Yeah.
I think Golden State, Dallas could go 7. I don't know. I don't know who wins that one. I think Golden State takes
Okay.
it. I think Golden State
Easy.
takes it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking at the East, man,
East.
I'm notwithstanding the first game, I think Boston still takes that series.
Yes, sir.
I still think, you think the same thing?
I feel the exact same way. I feel like I think this is the time for Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, Jaylen Brown to just take the next step. I think Jaylen Brown just had a really bad game. I think it's going to be Jaylen Butler's nasty. He's a, you know, grinder, as you said, fighter, someone that gets it out of the mud. But man, and they didn't have Al Horford or Marcus Smart. So when those guys are in the fold as well too, it's going to be even more difficult. But we'll see. So
I was going to say they're coming back right in this series. Whereas Lowry, I'm not sure his status if he's even coming back, and I feel like that's where they missed that extra floor general for Miami. You know,
right.
So yeah, they got the first game. I mean, you should win at home. You should win that first game at home. But the way Boston's playing, to me, they're the most complete team left in the playoffs. On the offensive and defensive side, like I said, I think they will bounce back. They've proven it with their coaching. They've proven, like Jason Tatum is, you can see it. Like he's taking that next step. He's going to learn from the mistakes that happen and the way they played him in the second half. He's going to bounce back, man. I don't want to see them win, but I definitely think we're getting a Boston Golden State final, man.
And between that, you think Golden State's going to win again?
If Golden State can get there, I could see them winning.
Wow.
I could see them winning. Yeah, if they can get there. If they can get through Dallas, I could see them taking it. It's just the pedigree, man. They know what it takes. Those guys, like their core guys, know what it takes. Boston, they haven't done it yet.
Right.
You know, they've gotten close. They've gotten close, but they haven't done it yet. And I feel like sometimes you need that experience to take you over the hump to get to that next level.
Absolutely, man. That's a great point. I think if Golden State doesn't win, I'm gonna have to have you sing a lullaby in the next podcast you do this. I'm like, hey, sing a lullaby, sing something. You're pretty. That's what you got to agree to. Are you agree to that?
All right, man. Rockabye baby, man. Rockabye
baby. Sounds good. Sounds good, man. Yeah.
I will say this though, man. That's what I think will happen. The matchup I would want to see is. I want to see Boston and Dallas.
Oh wow.
I want to see those young guys. I want to see the next crop of superstars battle it out, man.
Yeah. Well, that means if that happens, Golden State, that's like the end of their run pretty much. They're getting a little bit older. You know, it's going to be tough, but they're shooters, so you never know. They might get back there with the young core they have with Kuminga and Poole. I want to see Golden State versus Boston. Golden State versus Miami would be really good too, but I like to see Golden State get their other one because, of course, the Toronto. I was going to have you explain you when the Toronto won. You're like, I wanted you to explain that, but I think next time we'll get to that. We'll get to that fairly soon. But Patrick, Patrick, I want to know right now, like what you're doing, of course, not with the Hype Podcast. Host there, of course, you do street eats, you do some other things as well too, music and so on and so forth. But what are your goals for this year? And even going to next year, like where do you want to see yourself? What are you trying to get yourself into right now? If share everything with us, but where do you want to see yourself grow personally in next year?
Yeah, I think definitely taking Not With The Hype right here to the next level. You know what I mean? This is a big brand we're working on, and also working with other like-minded individuals. You know, people like yourself and other creators. You know, trying to reunite creators in the city, in the GTA, and create a network
Mhm.
of creators, right? So we can all grow together. So I think that's
So,
a key thing I want to do. As I mentioned before, getting more involved in the ED&I space and really working with organizations that are uplifting Black youth, and not just the youth, but also um, Black young adults, because I feel like
right.
you get to a point in your 20s and 30s where you kind of get left behind by the system. There aren't
Yes.
really supports for you. So
Right.
I really want to work with the space where um, I can have some sort of influence there, either mentorship, getting mentored, being a mentee. I think that's the next thing I want to do for this year, man. So really looking forward at taking that next level, that next step in my career where I can pass on what I've learned to other people,
Yeah.
and then also continue to learn from the previous
The
generation, man.
previous gentleman. That's awesome, man. Hashtag growth, Pastor Dennis Jr. That was an excellent
Try,
answer.
man.
And
We
hope
try,
everything.
man.
Make sure you listen to the Not With the Hype podcast on Apple Podcasts, everywhere, and every
Spotify,
podcast,
everywhere. Yeah,
Spotify,
man.
everywhere. It's a great podcast, and I'm hoping to be part of a little bit more with that in the cottage. We'll
Oh,
see.
yeah.
We'll see. It'll be a little bit
Yeah,
more
yeah.
because it's a great podcast. Street Eats. Are you going to continue with Street Eats as well too, or is that more so
Um,
a certain?
we might. It was kind of a one-time thing, but we're still in contact with them. Definitely doing some more video stuff though with the guys from Voice Visuals. So shout out to them as well.
Right.
But yo, we're back outside this summer, so you'll definitely
Outside.
be seeing me around the city,
Yes,
trying to
sir.
get back out there and just like we said, network and chop it
Yeah.
up with people. So yeah,
That's awesome, man. Hey, Pastor Dennis Jr., it's an absolute honor. I got to learn a lot more about you. Hopefully, you're not throwing up before a big audition anytime soon, but you did come a long way.
man, oh
But,
man.
right, but you can find Pastor Dennis Jr. at Pastor Dennis Jr. on all platforms. Like, where can they
Yeah,
find you?
yeah. Patrick Dennis Jr. on every single platform, man. I'm out
Right,
there. Twitter, Instagram are the big ones. On TikTok now, so yeah. Well,
there we go.
I'm not doing any dances, but we're on
You
TikTok too.
probably
So
should. Guys, make sure you follow Pastor Dennis Jr. Make sure you follow Now with the Hype podcast. This is
yeah,
the First and 10 podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Graham, alongside Pastor Dennis Jr. And of course, keep balling. Thank you so much, man.
yes, sir.